I'm looking at the scripts, just like you said, and they are so different. So I start looking around and seeing how much information I can get from what's around me. So what's the combination of things doing, if it's, harming them or if it's not doing anything at all. And I was really trying to find this aha moment when you see a couple of things being combined and getting something new. And then I had it, and then I decided that I'll create this new writing system that every time the top part will be of Arabic and the bottom will be of Hebrew. And I'm actually going to create hybrid letters that combine Hebrew and Arabic, and they are readable for both Hebrew readers and Arabic readers, which was and still like the pillar of this project. It needs to be readable for everyone. But a language, well, basically when you read it, it's the same language. You still read the Hebrew as it is, and you still read the Arabic as it is.
Oh, okay.
But the writing, like the script, is different. So this is my take on that. So actually, the first word I designed aligns very well with this podcast. It was language. I think it's a project of, first and foremost, it's a project of noticing, of seeing what's around you. And in our local space here in Haifa, in Israel, with people who are speaking a different language and a different culture, and people who don't normally interact. Right. And so like putting a huge spotlight on this situation to begin with. Some are really inspired to look at their culture and society. So people from Brazil or Indonesia have been writing to me of, this brings up a lot of things that they understand that they've been ignoring about minorities or other, people living in the same space as them, but thinking differently, speaking differently, and so on.
Välkommen. Bem-vindo. Vitame. 欢迎.
Welcome to the Blend Podcast. Fresh, fun, informative. This is your backstage pass for exclusive language industry news and views, interviews with leaders, translators, and pros, and insights on the intersection of words, business, and culture. And now, here's your host, Ronnie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. My guest today is Liron Lavi Turkenich, an independent typeface designer. Liron invented a very special writing system that combines Hebrew and Arabic into one word. During our conversation, we will discuss the cultural research Liron conducted for this project, the diverse reaction Aravrit received, and what our inspiration and vision are. Enjoy!
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. We have a special guest today, Liron Lavi Turkenich. I'm saying that right? Turkenich. I knew I always messed up the names. And Liron is an independent typeface designer, which is, I copied that from your website, but you can introduce yourself in a minute. And Liron is a very special guest. He's also Israeli, and we know each other a little bit. And I'm very excited to host you today, Liron, because you have a very special project, or I don't even know how to vision. I don't know how to call it. You invented a very special writing system where you kind of combine Hebrew and Arabic together, which I find fascinating. So we will talk about it. We will dive in, but first, introduce yourself, please, a little bit.
Okay. Hi, Ronnie. I'm so happy to be here. I'm also super excited for this. It's always such a pleasure to talk to someone I already know. So, it's already smiles in the air, which is really nice. So I'm Liron Lavi Turkenich, and I am a typeface designer indeed, and a design entrepreneur. And I am the founder and creative director of Aravrit, which is a hybrid writing system, just like you said, combining Hebrew and Arabic. A writing system that is readable in both Hebrew and Arabic, and it talks about what we see, what we ignore, and how we communicate with language, which is the topic of the podcast, right?
Which is the topic of the podcast. And also, the idea of this podcast, as I said to you, and also kind of repeated every interview, is that I'm really interested in the connection between how languages affect cultures. And because we obviously Blend is platform of localization. Localization is a really, really big word. Usually when people hear it, they think about technical aspects and, translation and stuff like that. But at the end of it, and I think maybe it's even more, stronger for us as Israelis because we usually kind of hybrid. We, many of us speaks in English, works with different cultures. So I feel like localization, this connection is the day to day. So that's what I found interesting. It's hard speaking in English to another Israeli. Yeah. and this project is so unique. I've known it for a while, but it's very, very unique because I think mostly because it's Hebrew and Arabic. So we'll speak a lot about Aravrit, but first of all, how do you find yourself doing that? Can you speak a little bit, your professional road, what other projects did you do until you kind of invented Aravrit?
Well, this is such a good question because Aravrit, I think it's been a thread throughout my adult life, I would say, more my professional life, because these days exactly, it's celebrating its decade of existence.
Wow.
Which is, it's been a while. Thank you. and it's going through all these hoops and new paths that I never imagined. So I think this is like a thread that kind of goes throughout my adult life. And if I go back also through my childhood and my love for letters, for words, for communication. And I think it's also a good example of how someone can take an idea which sounds kind of, imaginative or unreal or, something that couldn't be really based or have space in our word except for its concept, and really taking it and creating it into this venture, which has it has several streams and several income streams and also several things that I'm doing with it. So basically by now I'm using it as my playground to actually create basically anything that's related to letters, to communication, to Hebrew and Arabic, and even beyond. Yeah. So this is like the meaning, I think, of Aravrit to me in my life.
Of Aravrit. And I know you live in Haifa, right?
Yes.
Are you originally from Haifa? There's a reason why I'm asking.
Yes, I am born and raised, apart from, years here and there in the UK, in the US, in Tel Aviv.
Yeah. Yeah, so the reason I'm asking for viewers who are non-Israelis, obviously, is because Haifa is a very special city, I think, in Israel in a lot of ways, but mostly because of kind of like the intertwined of, Jewish Israelis and Arabic Israelis. So it's kind of like very special, unlike a lot of other cities in Israel. And do you feel like this was your background and the fact that you live there now, you raise your kids there, is kind of, been a factor in creating Aravrit?
It definitely has. And I think it even came I would say in the back door, or surprised me, because I used to have a lot of pride in, Haifa being like this coexistent city that we love to say. Yeah. And whenever I would go even abroad, I would say that I live in this coexistent city where, Hebrew speakers, Arabic speakers are really living side by side in this beautiful coexistency way. And if it's okay, I will share how it started, Aravrit, because it started exactly from there.
That's the next question. Yeah.
So the thing is that I actually never studied Arabic. So of course, some people in Israel, they do study at school Arabic, but I just happened to be in a school that they didn't.
Most of us doesn't, by the way, which is not a good thing in my mind. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But this is exactly the thing, because I agree with you. It's not a good thing. And that was actually the catalyst for this project. But I never, as a child, even thought that it doesn't make sense, that I didn't even think how Arabic is required to be, a language that everyone should know here. Yeah. And so I never studied it. And one day when I was walking down the street, I realized that there is, street signs in Israel. They have 3 languages on them, 3 scripts, Hebrew, Arabic, and Latin, so English. And I realized that I'm actually ignoring a third of the sign because I cannot read Arabic. So I'm looking at the letters, they're really beautiful ornaments or nice, decorations, but not letters with content and meaning. And this really struck me, because I said, how does it even make sense that I'm ignoring a third of every sign when I'm living in a coexistent city? And I started questioning, how really coexistent we are, how much of the hybrid we do have in our lives. And I realized that I didn't have much interactions with others who are speaking different language and have different cultures and friends. And I used to call it like a parallel existence. I would say we are all in the same space, but we're not really interacting. And this really, it was mind blowing to me. Like, how could I have been living for so many years with this notion that I'm in one place and I'm actually, it's not where I thought I am.
Okay.
So, and this is how it started, because I felt like
a very special point of view. But while you described it, I could relate to it. I think it's kind of like a lot of our life here in Israel. So,
yeah. Exactly. And, it's also, it's backed by science, right? Because we have this, this automatic system in our brain that we read what we know and we ignore the rest. So we don't our brain won't get overwhelmed with so much information. But in reality, I felt like this is something that's worth doing something with, or saying something and like screaming this thing that I've just discovered, because, it might apply to others as well.
Yeah.
And this is how it started.
What was the first word that you created? And if you can kind of let us in a little bit about the creative process of that, because Hebrew and Arabic, although there's a lot of similarities, the way that, and obviously I'm not a linguistic, but the way that both languages are written and look like isn't similar at all. So
exactly.
I know, I can assume, it was a challenge. If you kind of tell us a little bit how it was, how the creative process. So you have this idea, now what? Now what you do?
Yes, exactly. I have this idea, and I know that I want to be using letters because this is my profession. As a typeface designer, I feel that letters are my toolbox, and I know I want to say something, but I'm not sure how. And then I'm looking at the scripts, just like you said, and they are so different. So I start looking around and seeing how much information I can get from what's around me. So what's a combination of things doing, if it's harming them or if it's not doing anything at all. And I was really trying to find this aha moment when you see a couple of things being combined and getting something new. And then I remember the work of Dr. Louis-Émile Javal. He was a 20th century ophthalmologist from France, which discovered something extremely fascinating, that in order to read Latin letters, you basically need the top part. And then you can actually read. And I really love this concept, and I just wanted to see if it applies to Hebrew, kind of get a clue for how I'm going to do this project.
Yeah.
And what I discovered is that for Hebrew letters, if you want to be reading, you actually need to look at the bottom part. So I did lots of reading tests and asking.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you look at the top, many of the letters seem very, very similar, too similar even.
Right.
And then I went for the Arabic, and I saw that in the Arabic, it's very similar to Latin. So most of the identifying features are on the top part. And this was my aha moment, which arrived very late at night, very, very late. I was sitting like very, frustrated of this. And then I had this huge like ball drop. And I knew that I'm going to create a system.
All good things happened in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about it, and I think that when we're so tired, probably we're removing some of our boundaries and, our limiting beliefs. You're just tired. So a lot I fade away. You allow yourself more things. And then I had it, and then I decided that I'll create this new writing system that every time the top part will be of Arabic and the bottom will be of Hebrew. And I'm actually going to create hybrid letters that combine Hebrew and Arabic. And they are readable for both Hebrew readers and Arabic readers, which was and still like the pillar of this project. It needs to be readable for everyone.
For everyone involved. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing in so many different levels, this kind of combination. And again, we talked a little bit about that offline. We cannot ignore, kind of like the weight that both of these languages bringing with them, and like the combination and all of that. But before we dive into the more heavy things, what was the first word that you created using this? I don't know if to call it the language. I used to call it the language, and then I saw on your website that you called writing system. But I have to say, I think it's a language. I think it's a new language.
Well, I was thinking about it for a very long time, as you can assume. But a language, well, basically when you read it, it's the same language. You still read the Hebrew as it is, and you still read the Arabic as it is.
Oh, okay.
But the writing, like the script, is different. So this is my take on that. So actually, the first word I designed aligns very well with this podcast. It was language. So
cool.
In Hebrew, safa, in Arabic, lugha. Yeah, I will show you. It looks different, just like the first iteration of something, but still, this word is so meaningful to me. It's our building block.
Yeah, exactly. It's so meaningful. And also the name Aravrit, which again for our non-Hebrew and Arabic speakers, actually a combination of Aravrit, Arab, and Ivrit, Hebrew. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Thank you. I'll give credit. I'll give credit to that to a mentor that I had at the time, and he was like saying it even as a side note, like, "Oh yeah, you should call it Aravrit." And I said, like, it's perfect because it's exactly the hybrid I'm doing in writing. Now I'm doing it in speaking as well, so that's nice.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant and interesting to me. Ken, so you talk a little bit about the creative process of it. Was there? I can imagine there was a lot of research involved here as well, because obviously you're a native Hebrew speaker, but you said yourself you don't understand Arabic. So, like, who did you talk to? I can imagine when you just started, probably show it to a lot of Arab native speakers as well. So interesting to hear, like, what was the research process for this, and what kind of insights did you get from Arabs on this?
This is a great question because, yes, there is a lot of research involved, and I would even say like even sort of a market research in a way, because this kind of project needs to come from a certain. It needs to be humble. Like, I cannot come and say, let me show you how to write Arabic, because honestly, I don't know, and I will not I won't be pretentious and say I do. So I did just exactly what you're saying. After doing a very, very intensive historical and cultural research about the letters, their forms, what you can do and what you cannot do, I was looking at, newspapers and even like posters and stuff like that, and manuscripts from way, way, way back, from centuries ago. I knew that I had to be rooted in what really people see and how people read it. So what you suggested was one of the things I did at that stage, and I wanted to find some Arabic speakers who could help me, and I didn't know who to ask, which was again showing me this parallel existence, like me working on this, and honestly don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's part of our reality here in Israel, but it is still a sad one. And again, I can relate. Yeah. I think I feel like many Israelis will be able to relate to what you just said. Yeah.
Yes, and I had to find a very awkward way, which today I'm super grateful for, and for all the people who helped. But I was actually doing my first tests with audience at the Israeli train. I was commuting to Tel Aviv, and I would just have like drafts and drafts of words in different stages and different attempts. And I would overhear someone speaking Arabic, and I would approach and ask if they've got a few minutes to spare. And they were either extremely bored or just super nice. I think perhaps a combination of both. And that was how I tested the system and even perfected it, because people started really drawing on my sketches and starting to have discussions. She should have this, she shouldn't have that. And these moments are, they were funny because also Hebrew speakers saw that something interesting is happening on the train, so they jumped in too. So imagine this, like we're looking at one word which looks like kind of in a code or something. No one understands what it is if they're looking from a side. Right. And a lot of people are hunched over this and like saying what they're reading and what they think about it. And I would really smile at these moments, because I felt that it's exactly the first time in my life that these parallel lines are actually meeting and intersecting. So the train was very meaningful for Aravrit, and I'm so thankful for all the people who chimed in and gave their opinion.
That's such a great story. I can see it in my eyes, the really loaded trains and the commute from Haifa to Tel Aviv, with all of this variety of people, and kind of brings me to the next subject, which again, we're talking about Hebrew and Arabic, which are very kind of loaded, historic, languages, especially here in the land of Israel. And again, we're not going to talk about anything politics, but we can't really ignore kind of like this. It's loaded. I feel like that's the right word. That's what I saw when I first kind of like, first time I saw your project was a couple of years back, and I didn't know you back then. And I thought it's actually a political initiative at the beginning because of this kind of like, rich history of both languages. So how did you kind of, I bet everyone asked you about it. So what's your approach to that? What's your kind of view of that?
So I think about this question a lot because, of course, this project is political, but it's political from a very personal point of view. And I think it's a project of, first and foremost, it's a project of noticing, of seeing what's around you. And in our local space here in Haifa, in Israel, with people who are speaking a different language and a different culture, and people who don't normally interact. Right. And so like putting a huge spotlight on this situation to begin with. And yesterday someone asked me, how is it possible that no political party or no political campaign took ownership of this? And he said, like, how do you do it? How
I was thinking the same. Yeah.
So I have 3 kids. So this is exactly the same feeling I had when he asked this question, because I just told him, I'm protecting it just like a lioness. This is like no political party will take over this project. I'm very, very much protective of setting a wrong message than the one I intended. And I think that this really lets it be a kind of a vessel or a platform for people to put their own personal experiences and personal stories. So I'll just give an example of how this thing is, it goes even beyond, I would say, a conflict. There was this one person who reached out, and she said that she wanted to buy a necklace. I'm also doing like necklaces with words in Aravrit. And she told me that she has to share the story with me. And she told me that her grandmother came from Iraq. And when she was growing up, her grandmother talked to her in Arabic. But that person, she felt embarrassed by the Arabic. She wanted her grandmother to speak Hebrew to her, so she refused replying to her in Arabic. And now the grandmother passed away, and only now she understands the importance of Arabic culture and Arabic language in her life, in her Israeli Hebrew-speaking, even Jewish life.
Yeah.
So it comes from all different directions.
That's amazing.
I feel like putting it in a vessel of a political campaign would just do like no justice to this very open project or venture.
Right. Because it cannot stay clean once you have politics in it.
Yes.
Especially here. Yeah. I agree. I think it's amazing that you kind of managed to keep it clean and out of every, of the less clean sides, let's call it this way.
I'm doing the best, and some people, they will take it to that direction, but that is theirs to take. I mean, everyone can look at it in their own angle. Right.
Which kind of brings me to one of the things that I'm most interested about, and again, we talk about it offline, is the reactions that you received, because I'm sure, and I know that Aravrit took you to TED Talk in Vienna, and I know you did a really big exhibition in Dubai recently. So I know it's been taking you all over the world, so to speak. So I'm sure you've received very variety of reactions. So let's talk about that a little bit.
That's true. Yeah. Let me divide the reactions to local and international, or I might say to people who can read either Hebrew or Arabic, or people who can't. So the people who can read it.
I never even thought about it. It's because I can read it, obviously. I never even thought about it. What happens when someone can't read it? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
when again, we were talking about this vessel. So when someone can't read it, they apply, I would say, like zoomed out values from it. And I'll give an example, but I would say that first of all, I think the overwhelming reaction to it is very positive. And I think it's because people are feeling seen, first of all, and they're also feeling that this is like language and letters is something that people feel very comfortable with. It's not like I would, someone coming from outer space speaking something. They feel very comfortable with letters. So the reactions are overwhelmingly positive. There was once this like a news article that IP or EP did, and they took this project to Ramallah and they asked people if they can read it. And the reaction, which I expected to be very negative, was first of all that they can read it, which made me very happy because, they didn't have the safety net of Hebrew. They just had the Arabic and they could read it easily.
Right.
And then this person said that he doesn't approve because I'm an Israeli artist. And, I feel that this is really separated from the project. It's more of his way of thinking. And, I respect that. And if we're talking about like people who cannot read it, like in TED in Vienna or the Design Museum in London and South by Southwest, even like places like that.
Most of the people actually probably in the world cannot read Hebrew, that for sure, but even Arabic. And once you go to Vienna, just not a lot of people, I assume, that can read either language.
No, there are not. I mean, some will, and they will feel like they're solving a puzzle. So if someone can read it, the immediate reaction is like, I can read it. That's really cool. Now I will think about like the idea behind it and open a discussion. So the people who cannot read it are, first of all, some are really inspired to look at their culture and society. So people from Brazil or Indonesia have been writing to me of, this brings up a lot of things that they understand that they've been ignoring about minorities or other, people living in the same space as them, but thinking differently, speaking differently, and so on. So I think it inspires this notion of observing. And the other thing is that people are feeling and this is, I'm saying reactions that I've been getting, people are feeling very optimistic and also inspired to use their own toolbox to take action and to do something meaningful. And this guy in Vienna after the TEDx, he came to me and he told me, listen, I used to think that I'm just a programmer. And now when I'm seeing you and you're just a typeface designer. And I was like, it was funny. It's a really tiny niche. But, that was exactly what I needed after, being on this huge stage. Like, you're just a typeface designer, which is true.
I texted you after I've watched it. I was in tears in my eyes when I finished watching you, and then I was like, "Oh my god!"
that was actually such an amazing learning and fun experience that I had. It's going with me forever. And he said
amazing.
That it was. And he said, I'm just now understanding that I also can use my own tools and I can do something meaningful in this world. And I was talking at the end of that TED talk, I was talking about the power of hybrid and, creating new things from what we can and what we have. So that was like I would say the international message to this.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I've never thought about it that way. Again, I'm a person of words. I started my way as content writer, and even, as marketing community, I deal with words. I've always been. And and I always say that it's, even just small things that you write, you never know who's going to read it and how it's going to affect their day.
Yes.
So you're taking this really loaded, historical two languages and combined together, and you say, hey, this is like, it's really nice. But then, it goes out to the world. And I feel like from your description, like it now, Aravrit now kind of has its own life. Right? It's kind of like, it's like doing things and going places, even, without you. So speak.
Yeah.
Just from that person, reaction, this program guy. It's
exactly. Like every talk, every interaction brings so many new, I call it like the tree of Aravrit, and just brings up so many new branches and leaves and flowers that I could never anticipate when I started this.
It's crazy. Can you speak a little bit about how, like the actual product, so to speak, of Aravrit? Because what was the first thing that you started? I remember reading about, you did like a little, market a bag and stuff like that. But I know now you have a lot of, again, I don't know if products is the right word for it.
Yeah, there are products too.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. So right now, Aravrit is I'm doing custom designs because it's not a font that you can type, and I'm doing lots of talks and workshops worldwide. And I have a shop, an online shop, and actually there is a funny story to that, because the reason this shop started is because I got a message from the producer of the band's visit on Broadway, and he wanted necklaces of this upcoming Broadway show, the band's visit.
That is based on Israeli movie.
Yes.
Yeah, anyone who doesn't know. Yeah.
which is very, very similar to Aravrit in its being, I think, because it talks about a very small event, this movie, something very daily that really, undercovers things that are going on beneath the surface. And then I did these necklaces because it was such a great learning experience. For this show, it was the first time on the history of Broadway that someone outside the Broadway shop has sold, the artist sold necklaces. So like the first time ever. And then people started asking for these things to be wearing or hanging on their walls as a way to actually use it as a message. Instead of saying, hello, my name is this and that, and I believe in this and that, you just show it, you wear it, and you basically show your values in a very, very simple way. And that's why people like it. So I'm doing that as well.
doing a lot of things in that. Has anyone ever asked for, one of the words to tattoo on them? Because it's like the perfect tattoo, right? It's perfect.
Yes. This is, whenever I also have tattoos, and whenever I get a request for one, I always feel so honored, because this is for a lifetime. This is like no joke.
Exactly. You can't make it up.
I get lots of requests. Sometimes I'm designing custom words. Sometimes I'm just selling, like for a very symbolic, I would say, rate, selling the right to use a word. And it always comes with a beautiful personal story. I love this part.
I can imagine which word has been tattooed the most.
The first one I did was, what do you think?
Probably peace or shalom.
Well, I don't have peace or shalom. I never designed it intentionally.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I was sure I've seen it.
Well, there is a ripoff, one of them, but it's not very good. So I'm not, I'm not getting to, there are lots of attempts for ripoffs. So, which I know should be like, something to be proud of in a way.
It's annoying.
But it is annoying. And,
it is annoying.
The first tattoo someone asked was the word human. It was two really good friends, and one of them was Jewish, one of them was Muslim, and they're traveling and sharing experiences, and they wanted to commemorate these trips of them. So that was one of them. And a lot of people are tattooing the word life, which is it's a loved one.
Chaim.
Yes, Chaim.
Yeah.
That's one that I think I would say that this one is tattooed the most, life.
It's beautiful. I have plans of getting either the necklace or the T-shirt of life. I can also feel like it represents our, reality in Israel very good.
Exactly. But it also represents another layer of what you think about your life in Israel.
Your life. And also, I can really relate to what you said, that it's kind of like, put your values out, put, what you believe, again, what you believe in specific values out without really saying that. So I love that as well.
Exactly. Exactly that.
So my original question, what is your big dream for Aravrit? And then you said something that I would love if you could repeat or say whatever it is you're comfortable with about, next steps or your vision for Aravrit and also other visions, the professional that you have for this very, very special kind of like language. I would call it language.
Yeah, that works too. I think that, I would say that in terms of Aravrit, the reason I told you that this is a hard question for me is that I am very much flowing with the river on this project. And remember, I talked about the tree of Aravrit, like the branches and the leaves. So I think that this project is what it is, like the stem of the tree. It is what it is. The design is what it is, and the guidelines for it. But then the trees and the branches, and the leaves and the fruit and the flowers are happening and blossoming, and then changing seasons. And this is how I like to treat it. Like every day is something new and a new adventure, and something interesting could be starting tomorrow, something interesting could be starting in 2 weeks. So all of the time there are many things bubbling under the surface of Aravrit. And I think that like a personal thing that I would love for it is to really make a lot of impact in people's life, like to continue to inspire a lot of people. It's not like a ventured back project. It's basically me coming and saying the story and telling it. And so this is something I would love for more people to know about this and to think about their own lives through this. And also the power of design and letters, this is big. Like we have a huge tool in our life and we can use it.
Yeah. It's huge. Well, we can use it, and we can use it to affect so many aspects in our life and others people's lives, as you said, which is amazing.
Exactly. The power of words.
The power of exactly. The power of words. And also, again, it kind of brings it circle back to the beginning of our conversation, the power of the combination, how language affects cultures. And I think what you literally did that with Aravrit. You took two very big languages, but also, again, cultures and all the big cultures that come with it, and kind of like combine it together and see, let's see what happens. And a lot of things happen. And me being Israeli, like my original thought would be, this is not good. She probably gets a lot of bad reviews and stuff like that. But from what you're saying, and obviously now when I know you a little bit, so I know it's mostly good feedback, and people, as you said, are being very moved. And I know, again, me as an Israeli, is very moved by this kind of like, special way to combine two cultures, not just languages.
It is. I think it's a really different way to combine, like showing that there are multiple ways to do stuff, and this is one of them.
Right.
It's mainly saying something about our existence. So here is what I see, and here is how I'm translating it to letters.
Exactly. I feel like this episode will touch a lot of people's hearts, like it did mine. So thank you for your time. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching.
I enjoyed it so much.
You're always welcome. And again, if you're in the business of localization, you're very welcome to join our Pearls Localization Club on Facebook. And see you soon. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for the next episode by following us on social media. If you're in the localization business, join our private Facebook group, Pro Localization Club. See you there.
Thanks for tuning in to the Blend podcast. Follow Blend on social for updates and future episodes. We'll see you next time.